Hey boys and girls, here we are standing in front of the BYD Shark. This is, as we put it a couple of times, an interesting vehicle. Tragically, we're not going to be taking it down to the last nut and bolt because, quite frankly, we haven't got time. But what we are going to do today is talk a little bit about Paul and Armin today are going to talk, and myself, are going to talk a little bit about what does this powertrain look like and how does it work. And then this frame, which is like unbelievable, and a couple of the other little incongruities that we bumped into. This is a very unusual vehicle, say the least. That's where we are right now. So anyway, let's start at the front. And so many of you know that I was an engine engineer for a long time, and I looked at this, which is a pulley. And found out that it's a pulley, all right, but really what it is a I lost my
damper?
mind.
A waste of money.
It's a waste of money. It should be just a damper. A damper is just a lump of aluminum or steel or something to give you a way to hold the crank happy, or make the crank happy. That is an expensive component, but it doesn't do anything except
there's
act
no
like a
fun and
damper.
accessory drive on
No.
this, and so it seems a little bit odd to have
Yeah.
the damper there.
Our best guess is that they use this engine on different platforms, and this is the pulley that they use for the accessory drive. They had too many on the shelf and have to use it here as well.
Well,
but,
I'm guessing that everything's so damn cheap in China that they don't fool around with piece cost, and labor is
The
uber
complexity
cheap. So
reduction was worth it.
yeah, it might mean that complexity costs more than the parts.
yeah.
It
But
is
with,
a little odd though that it's a north-south
North-south,
arrangement,
yeah.
you know, and typically when you have a turbocharged 4 driving a hybrid kind of a powertrain, it's usually arranged
East-west.
east-west, but now to fit it between the frame rails. they
Well,
put it
this is
way.
a bigger engine than I was expecting to see as well. This is a 1.5 liter, a 1.5 liter engine. It could be that they just didn't even have the room to do it the other way, because this is a lot longer than what I'm expecting to see in a hybrid like this. This is a relatively big engine for what it's supposed to be doing. The other thing too is it's turbocharged, which also was a little bit of a surprise to me. I would expect maybe to put a turbocharge on something like that would be under 1 liter. And I don't know why they use a 4-banger. I would have probably gone for a 3, because how much do I actually need?
yeah. So usually we'd often see, an Atkinson style cycle, naturally aspirated motor. You'd
Yeah.
have a lot simpler system, really good
Right.
efficiency, but not all that turbo stuff, the intercoolers, everything
Yeah.
that you need to support this kind of system, right?
Yeah.
I think this frame is reused from other platforms. I don't think it's specifically designed for the Shark, which might also have driven the decision to go north-south on this, right? So if you look how much distance you have in between those frame rails, that was probably a packaging constraint that has driven this.
Well, I'll tell you what, everything to do with the frame to me is like, wow, this is overdone.
Yeah.
I've never quite, you had some comments that you wanted to talk about here with
Yeah,
the
if you come
double
around
Cs.
here, Eric. So in this large area, we have our battery pack sitting. And so for that, we can't package cross members. So for side impact protection, they really went and put a lot of effort in beefing up these frame rails. They're not very big. If you look at full-size trucks, the box dimension or the cross-section of this is relatively small, but they have more material inside this frame rail. So if we look, we see, so we can
wells.
feel it
Yeah.
through all these holes here that are for eco drain, etc., and fixturing. But we see these puddle wells on both sides and on the inside as well. And so it looks like they have a convoluted shape inside to give it a lot of stiffness and resistance to intrusion in case you have a side impact, right? So a side pole test, or a car hits you, T-bones you. Interesting is, so it looks like they are using this battery structurally. It's not isolated from the frame, but in case of impact, right, these bolts are perpendicular to the force. So you're not really going to be able to conduct a lot of that impulse across the vehicle to the other frame rail, meaning you have to really get that stiff. And there's a lot of costs associated with it. This is not cheap.
This is not cheap. This is not easy, and it's got a lot of redundancy. To take that extra C channel and put it inside, and then have to weld through that slot, basically. Some people call it keyholing, but really it's a puddle weld that goes from this chunk to the piece of steel that's inside, and they do it on both sides. This is really, really, I've never seen anybody do this. And I worked on tanks, and I never saw that before. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how much they really have to worry about, because we do have a side member or a cross car beam here, and we got another one over there holding the engine up. Basically, you'd have to hit this with maybe a tank. Maybe that's what it's made for. I don't know how you'd crush this. I really don't. Just based on looking at this, I mean, it's only a meter and a bit. I don't quite get why they'd need.
So we haven't looked at the battery. It's right sitting over here behind us. But when we get in there, I don't expect that we're going to see a lot of cross structures in there, right? So it's a BYD blade-based pack, and usually when we look at them, they like to really stack it in there, make it very compact.
Yeah, the blade battery tends to have the cells are really long to go the entire span the entire length of the vehicle. So you're right, they probably don't have room for the cross members.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the end of the day, I got a cross member here, I got a cross member there. This thing's made out of steel, not peanut butter. What in the world were they thinking? Because quite frankly, I do not see any crash that could make something happen in this short a distance. I just don't see it happening.
So it's got really good protection for that battery, and the gas tank, by the way.
Well, the gas tank, as long as you don't put it on the other side of the axle like GM did for a while, or a saddlebag. I don't want to get into that.
I would say that this being a Chinese vehicle, some of our viewers might think that safety could be substandard from an American market, European market perspective. This really seems to really keep in mind the safety of the passengers. We also see some...
They're making a statement here with that this is probably overly robust.
Yeah. Way overly robust.
We see a tire catcher here for sorb impact, so this will engage the wheel and
push it out.
I think that regulations in terms of what batteries need to endure and how they're spec'd are kind of ahead in China than in the American market, right? So they do have some standards, the Chinese government, that we're still working on over here.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, this has gone through homologation. And so what they've got in China is China. This is made for an American market, and they probably looked at the homologation requirements and said, just double it. And that way we won't have any problem with lawyers, and that's entirely possible. Why don't we stop with that for a minute? Let's go back to the powertrain, because quite frankly, I find this kind of confusing. Paul, you've done the research, so you can tell us what's going on.
Really, just looking at it this morning, one thing that jumps out at you is that in a north-south arrangement, normally you've got a big old drive shaft that goes to the rear wheels. There's no drive shaft. So this engine is driving a generator. The generator drives an electric motor, which drives the front wheels, and the generator powers the battery. And then this DC arrangement of power, where they're pulling the power from the front side of the battery and going to the back. And there's another electric drive unit in the back. So it's really an electrically driven vehicle with a range extender engine. But they've done it in sort of the same way as the Chevy Volt, where inside this there's a planetary gear set and a clutch that they can lock up that allows them to mechanically drive the front wheels at highway speed, which is more efficient rather than the series hybrid arrangement for highway driving. So that's a kind of a nifty arrangement that we just haven't seen in this north-south arrangement before.
For the money, I don't for the money that I'm going to need to do that, I really don't see the advantage. I really don't. I don't. The engine is bigger than it has to be in order to get the job done. Running a 4-banger on highway speeds and stuff like that, that's great, but it runs there's a reason why everybody used to like 8s and 6s at least. 4-cylinder engines don't last as long as a sloppy V8. By the way, the other thing that I wanted you to talk about was, I don't understand this ring.
They've got DC power running down both of these frame rails, and that ends up creating a big loop.
Could it be for regen?
So it may be. I mean, regen, you're going to get most of your regen from the front wheels, and that's going to be directly powering the generators. There's going to be some regen you're going to get from the rear wheels, but whether it's regen or motoring, the power is going to be flowing through the DC connections. I think what happened here is that they have only so much room to package the power electronics up here in front. And so clearly they've got, like, for example, the DC to DC converter and some of the other power electronics need to be packaged in this rear area. So I think there's just a matter of, again, what we're seeing here is that package choices to where you're going to fit all of the power electronics you need to control all this stuff. So since it has to be located in the back, you got to run the power to it. I kind of wish they had put all of the power on one side, because when you have a big loop like this, it can create an inductance that can cause trouble.
Yeah. I've got a question that just, again, I haven't looked at this too much. Started looking at this about an hour ago. I'm just wondering, could this be a Trojan horse? Could this be hey, copy me on this one here? I mean, how many engineers, they did it, we got to do it. Right? That's one of the problems with being an engineer sometimes, especially a young one. Well, they did it, so we have to do it. And this looks like a lot of stuff that I wouldn't copy. Actually, we're going to remove the box and maybe talk a little bit about what's going back there, but that rear suspension is like nothing I've ever seen, and I've worked on tanks, and I've never seen anything like that. And a lot of things that I see here just don't make a whole lot of sense. This is certainly not a low-cost vehicle. No way in hell.
Even this cradle that's mounting the EDU, it's hard mounted to the frame, welded and bolted in, which is interesting. But just looking at it, this seems excessively beefy, right, for just holding it up. Yeah. Just referencing my mind and my mind's other executions that I've seen over the years. It's a little bit tough to see right now with the bed on there, but we'll pull it off and maybe get a couple better shots of that.
Well, why don't we go over to one of your observations, Armin, and talk about the what do you call it over here, the hydraulic fitting?
Yeah, there are certainly some things here that are worth copying or worth looking at.
So oftentimes on brake lines, you see rubber hoses to give you the articulation that you need in the suspension as the suspension goes up and down and the wheel goes through its steering envelope. Here, which is actually something that we've proposed to some of our clients, is to get rid of hoses. You certainly still need this one in the front, but in other areas, for example, on the rear suspension for a truck that sees very minimal range of motion that you have to accommodate with a rubber hose, you could take out the stiffness of this brake line just through geometry, spiral it up, and you get everything you really need just from geometry, possibly eliminating some of these rather expensive rubber hoses. Again, maybe not for the front, but in the rear certainly you could do that. And so it's kind of interesting to see the same principle, not in the same position that we proposed, but it's always nice to see when,
So that can help take up the tolerances to whatever this is connecting to.
Yep.
So you don't have to have the extra rubber hose and all the connections in here, which can be kind of expensive.
Eliminating a part.
In the olden days, steam engines, that's a steam coil, and it would take up thermal expansion and contraction, vibration, on and on and on. So it's not the first time I've ever seen it, but it certainly is the first time I've ever seen it on a pickup truck. Yeah. Cool. Now what do you want to look
I
at?
think also notable is a lot of the corrosion protection that they use on the truck. Right? Some of these areas on the frame are waxed, so it's not everywhere, but kind of like GM. They're using the sort of a dip wax. Always gets your hands dirty when you're working on vehicles. So if you have a GM truck and you do your oil changes, you'll exactly know what we're talking about here.
Anyway, what else we got here?
Steel tank is normal.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty rare nowadays to use a steel tank. Right? So it's actually hard to find a supplier that'll make that for you nowadays.
We got rid of them at Ford when I was at Ford. One of the reasons that they hired me at Ford initially was because I had a lot of machine tool background. So I made welding, or I worked on companies that made welding machines, and we made automation and robotic stuff and whatnot. And one of the things that I worked on was seam welding gas tanks. And we hated every time somebody came in with one. They're hard to do, and quite frankly, they leak a lot. So when I was at Ford, they said, "Oh, we're going to redo the gas tank line at the Dearborn engine plant." And I said, "Why don't you just get rid of it and go to a plastic tank?" And anyways, they had a big argument about it. But because of the warranty costs, the leaking and stuff like that, Ford decided, let's get rid of the gas tank and like the steel gas tank, and move to a blow molded tank. But these things are horribly expensive. They're heavy, and you take a chance on them leaking. I don't like it. I would never in a million years go for that.
Speaking of powertrain, I think it's also notable to say this is about the size of a Ranger, but we have at a system level about 430 horsepower, right? So this is quite a bit of power. Obviously, it's also heavy, right? It's a hybrid, but I'm not sure what the towing is and load capacities, but it is likely quite substantial, right? So this is not a little truck in the sense that we usually see for mid-size
Well, it's a
vehicles.
little truck with a lot of big ideas, I guess. I don't know what towing capacity and things that this has got right now, but I will tell you that this is so over-designed for a Ranger. It's slightly bigger than a Ranger, but a Ranger type of...
Should we have a look at the battery?
Yeah, let's go and have a peek at that. This has also kind of got a couple of mysteries. This looks like about 25 or so kilowatt hours. I'm not sure exactly what this is, but I've never seen this much padding in my life.
No trampling.
What?
Don't step on the battery.
Oh,
but
very
yeah.
good. Oh, very good.
But yeah, aluminum box that's completely covered with this foam material.
One thing we are going to do is we're going to be removing some of these blade batteries and have them tested and stuff like that for chemistry and whatnot. We're not going to be doing a heck of a lot, but I am very interested in what these look like and how they've put them together. I will tell you one thing. These guys know how to weld. Now, this would be a robotic weld, but even for a robot, this is pretty damn good. I got to tell you, big kudos there.
It's one of the things that strikes me is it's very simple. The competitors like Tesla will put the power electronics inside the battery compartment, and it looks to me like the only thing in here is going to be based on this battery and the battery modules.
Well, I think
battery
there's
control modules.
But I think
Other than
somewhere
that-
there's going to be the what do you call it, pyro switch, pyrotechnics to cut everything
Right.
off.
Some-
So that may be in here somewhere.
contactors, but just the bare minimum of what you need
Yeah.
for battery and battery control. All of the other power electronics are located elsewhere, and the only connections to this whole pack are again up front
Yeah.
And then they run all the power back to where they have the power electronics located. So I thought that's a little bit of a interesting packaging set of choices.
Well, the box looks like it's just maybe 2 extrusions, right? So you have this side, here's aluminum extrusion. You machine it a little bit off, and then it's mirrored on this side, so it's just flipped around, same dies. Yeah. And then 2 extrusions front and rear. So maybe the square or the 4 sides are just done with 2 extrusions and 2 dies. And then you have a bottom plate, likely integrated cooling system in there. Interested to see what it's like. And just a steel cover on top. They do glue it down with, so this doesn't really seem removable. So I think this is not done for service.
Did you notice this? Did you notice whatever this thumb grade or something is here?
Yes, I think that's the same stuff they shove in the back here, right, to close out the internal
I can only poke
cells
it in.
of the extrusion.
I can only poke it in so far, so I'm assuming that there's a weld underneath. Why would I put, this looks like pumpable and then somebody just rounded it off with their thumb. I wonder what the rationale was there.
I just did the math, and it's 31 kilowatt hours.
31, okay, so I was
Math on the
off.
fly.
Yeah, math is good.
It's printed on the back here.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Oh, it's printed on the back.
Reading on the
that's
side.
cheating. If you're going to read shit from now on,
You
you're
should tell
out.
him you're doing this in your head.
Yeah.
We'll delete that out.
Yeah,
You can get the math.
no, we can put it in. It's good for a few laughs. Let's everybody know that we're all human here. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so we got anything else we want to?
Oh, I think it's interesting. I mean, I don't think this will be stylistically up to par to American manufacturers, how they bolt on your, whatever you want to call this hoop, right? So it's a little awkward looking from a design perspective, bit of an afterthought. Let's just get it on there. I don't know if you can actually do anything with that. Maybe
I
put a
think
light
that's
bar on there.
styling. That's
Yeah,
about
it's just
it.
styling.
Yeah.
Right? So, but if it's supposed to be styling, then make it look good, right? So I think visually not quite as integrated as I would like it.
Well, actually, if you look inside here, I don't want to talk too much about this, but this is way overdone too. I mean, really and truly,
The D-pillar?
everything here looks overdone. So, anyhow, to all the small truck OEMs out there, be very careful what you decide to copy on this particular vehicle. And with that, any parting words, gentlemen?
I think that's all
That's
for
it.
me.
Thanks for watching.
Take
Bye
care,
now.
guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.